Hello, everybody. Welcome to Raising Vibrations. Here with Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at Mercury retrograde. And this is for the 14th of October, or 13th, 14th of October, to the 3rd of November 2020. Mercury will be in the sign of Scorpio, and then will retrograde into Libra. And so we will be dealing with themes of the Libra and the Scorpio energy. A couple of quick announcements that I want to just share with you guys. If you are interested in learning astrology or are interested in just exploring different aspects of astrology, I have an entire evolutionary astrology school or library that is designed to specifically teach you, and it's done in a really creative way. So if you're interested in that, that is on my website. I'll post that in the description. We have a really good moderator in our student group, and we're consistently digesting and learning about evolutionary astrology in that forum. So if that's something that really piques your interest, I will post all of that information there. And if you are looking to work with us, again, on our website, I'll post the link over there. If you want to just look at your astrology chart from a design perspective, what's purpose for you, to working through childhood trauma, to understanding what the soul's direction is, all of that we cover within the work that we do, okay? And lastly, we have a Patreon community. We've been running it for just over 3 years. It's been a really great source to connect with people and to go that extra step beyond this conversation. Can really interact with you guys on a more personal level there. Okay, so Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, my initial thoughts are this is a time in which we want to really begin to expose the subconscious thinking patterns, okay, that influence, control, and narrate your life. Now, a lot of these unconscious patterns are primarily unconscious because there are messages that we would have received as we were growing up. And some of those messages can look like an internalized sense of there's something wrong with me, I am not good enough, to a belief inside of yourself that says, if you do achieve, that will equal XYZ, and that's kind of a negative connotation, right? So we form a constellation of beliefs and perspectives about ourselves that are rooted in something that really doesn't nourish us, that doesn't bring us into a closer relationship to something meaningful or purposeful. We shun away from defining ourselves and leading our lives with authenticity. So Mercury in Scorpio wants us to expose things that are disempowering to us, okay? When it moves into Libra, it's going to invite us to apply the new direction that we worked on while Mercury was in Scorpio, okay? So you'll notice that when I go to the chart, you'll see that when Mercury actually enters Libra, we shift from intense subterranean psychological sensitivities and undertones and, all of these ways in which we have felt that life hasn't been fair to us, to how can we integrate and rebalance the inner structure of our personal perception of reality to align with something that's really authentic and real for us. Okay? So that's my thoughts on the potential that we can use this Mercury retrograde with. So let's go ahead and actually have a look at the chart at the moment. And what you can see on the screen here is, let me just get my little cursor. You can see it on the screen. It's very small. So yeah, here's on the 13th of October, 2020, you got Mercury stationing there. There we go. Right, stationing at 11 degrees Scorpio, and it makes an opposition to Uranus sitting there in Taurus at 9 degrees, right? And it also makes a trine to the moon in Virgo and Venus in Virgo. Now, my initial thoughts are the moon crossing Venus over here And the trine to Uranus indicates this dynamic tension between moving ahead with something that's really meaningful in your life and feeling insecure about not feeling ready enough for it. So this Mercury in Scorpio wants to say, hey, what types of beliefs do you still hold about yourself that doesn't give you that sense that you actually believe in yourself, right? Where are you disempowering? Where are you putting blocks in your way? And how can you rewrite the narrative? So this is very much just about really exploring stuff more than anything else, like noticing where these patterns exist. Okay, the Mars in opposition to the Sun can feel like a tug of war between an internal sense of direction and autonomy and how you are relating to other people. Right. So there's this spectrum of opposition and between your desires and other people's desires and how you're relating and feeling included or not. And then the Mercury in Scorpio is adding this tone of loss, betrayal, abandonment on one level. You'll see that in the collective. But internally, individually for us, this energy really just promotes what I was introducing with this Mercury retrograde. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and actually have a look at the actual chart itself so I can move it. Okay. So something interesting that I want to share with all of you guys, and I have to laugh about it because it really actually just put me into a really upset state. I was grieving a lot. I still am, to be honest. I recorded this whole entire thing, and when I put it into the editor to go and edit out some stuff, it didn't actually record the screen at all. So I'd spent all that time preparing for it and everything, recording it, captivating a message, and classic Mercury retrograde, somewhere along the line, something glitched, and I have audio but no chart of this. So this is my second attempt to actually record this with you guys today. And then the notes that I'd taken down for the dates that I thought were important, I can't find anywhere. And I don't even understand where they're gone, because it's only been like literally half an hour between actually recording the first one and recording the second one. But the notes are gone. So what we're going to do in this recording, because I feel the need to kind of just go with it, is go from memory. And so the first thing that we're going to look at when we animate this chart is we're going to look at this aspect here, right? So you see the moon in Virgo, right? The moon's sitting at 18 degrees and Venus is sitting at 13. Well, there's an opposition to Neptune. And that's where I see that the initial energy comes in around looking at patterns of deep internalized beliefs and ideologies that say, I'm not good enough, I deserve this, this is where I feel disempowered, and all of these patterns of thinking that keep you emotionally paralyzed, right? Don't actually feel the spirit in you, right? So that energy, it's sort of embedded in the moon, all right? Mercury and Uranus are in opposition to each other. And this archetype of Taurus and Scorpio has to do with the relationship to confronting pre-existing values and beliefs that you hold and saying, while that it is meaningful and supportive at a time when those belief systems became your worldview, they're also limiting because things evolve. So this energy at the moment is pointing to the initiation, okay, of Mercury retrograde, and that is, what limiting beliefs and scope of perspective do you have that prevents you from broadening your horizons and being curious about an aspect of reality that you may have not actually entertained in your life, because up until now, the cultural narrative or scripts that you've been aligned with or been living through has given you the definition of life and the definition of meaning. And this energy is about taking that power back and saying, no, I give life meaning to me. This is my experience. This is what I here to witness and see. This is how I see my world. This is what it is that I understand. And individuating from a collective we ideology. Okay? So we move along. As you can see, the moon enters Libra, and eventually we will have a new moon on the 16th of October. And you can see that this new moon is in opposition to Mars, so it highlights the tension between people wanting to go in one direction and people wanting to go in a different direction, creating a polarization. But really, what we're trying to do internally within ourselves is bridge the gap that we have within our outer perception of reality and our inner perception of reality. And so we're kind of finding the balance. We're looking for the balance between adjusting to a new way of living for ourselves. And the reason why I say the word new living is because all of the stuff in Aries, right? We're learning about ourselves in a completely new way. And you'll see on the 16th, the moon and sun will make a quincunx, an inconjunct to Neptune. All right. That's a significant aspect because there's 3 of them that's going to take place. There's going to be another inconjunct between Venus and Mars, and then there's going to be an inconjunct between Mercury and Chiron. And the initiation of these 3 inconjuncts is the new moon. And the inconjunct between Libra and Scorpio in our chart reflects the psychological state of cognitive dissonance, or where we will tend to create a reality outside of ourselves that mirrors the one inside of ourselves, and that's not the actual reality outside of ourselves. So we experience kind of a discourse between our projection of reality and the actual reality itself. So don't be surprised that on the 16th with this new moon, you'll find a tremendous amount of material coming to the surface where your inner world and your outer world don't match, and the crisis will manifest through an adjustment of recognizing these unconscious patterns within your psychology, within the subtrain of your thinking, and it will just force a crisis, right? It will just initiate an adjustment experience. It's then when Venus goes to 18 degrees of Virgo on the 18th of October, Venus goes to 18 degrees and it inconjuncts the Mars retrograde in Aries at 19. And again, this is the, from EA's perspective, this aspect between Venus and Mars is now one where we have internalized a sense of purpose. We realize that we're consistently moving along a specific road. But when this inconjunct comes along, it says, okay, it's all good that you've developed all these things. That's great. But now we need to make some necessary adjustments to streamline the experience. So on the 18th, we'll experience a kind of crisis and adjustment, a necessary adjustment within the context of our inner reality and our outer reality. And that is all coming down to a deep psychological internalization of patterns of thinking within yourself that are rooted in the past, right? So you may actually find yourself wanting to make that step into that next phase of your life, and you don't believe yourself. And so Mercury with the moon, you'll notice that the moon actually makes a conjunction to Mercury. It will bring the message of the new moon there. So when Mercury and moon conjunct and Venus and Mars inconjunct on the 18th, you will experience an adjustment, right? An adjustment towards what types of patterns of thinking need to go out, what types of patterns no longer work for you anymore, okay? So that will take place, and we'll move along, right? And the sun and the moon and Mercury will be coming closer together. Mercury will be still trining Neptune, of course, and this Mercury trine Neptune will create the experience of aligning with things that actually are really meaningful and real to you, and recognizing what disenchanting experiences you're having, where what you think and what you thought about things was your own internal relationship to it. Meaning you may carry with yourself a certain projection within self that places the onus of responsibility outside of yourself. And so this adjustment between Mercury and Venus, sorry, not Mercury and Venus, but Mercury and Neptune, will support the ongoing healing process associated with those experiences. So crisis on the new moon, adjustment on the 18th, and then alignment or readjustment and alignment with Mercury trining Neptune, and this is on the 20th, okay? And of course, we'll be experiencing a Venus opposed Neptune aspect as well. And a Venus opposed Neptune aspects are, again, we're healing and recognizing where internally within ourselves we have these patterns of values or internalized messages that tell us, or not tell us, but we subscribe to consciously and unconsciously, that narrate our life. And that's what, again, this is what this is all about. It's just a complete wiping out of old code that is not necessary anymore, so that you can step into deeper layers of your truth. Simple as that. So the experience, though, is different. Okay, so now we have the third inconjunct, and this is between Mercury and Chiron, and this happens on the 21st of October, 21st, 22nd. And so this inconjunct is more of a circumstances or situations outside of yourself that will feel limiting to you, whether it be that you dream to be the most popular software developer, right? Now that's great. That's fantastic. This aspect between Scorpio and Aries, or Mercury in this case and Chiron in Aries, is you can't just go out into the world and say, I'm the best developer in the world, and so therefore I demand this job. It's not going to work, right? Society is going to say, well, there's a bunch of experiences that you need to go through to justify if that's true or not. So while it is true that we all deeply within inside of ourselves have this sense of brilliance, and that we want to express it and we want to follow a dream, we need to check in with what is the way that we language that process and how we believe about that, and what types of illusions or things do we have in place that may seem real to us, but to the outside world might be completely crazy, or it's too ungrounded. That's the better word, ungrounded. And that would also correlate to the Neptune opposed Venus here. So this is about adjustment. This is about getting real. This is about getting honest with yourself and exposing the things that prevent you from actually being the thing that you want to be, right? The expression, the discovery of life, the readjustment of your values. All of these things are coming up for review with this Mercury in Scorpio aspect, especially because of its opposition to Uranus and Taurus. Okay, so again, that Mercury in conjuncting Aries is readjustment in yourself, readjustment around what types of choices and actions can you make going forward that align with the insights that you've experienced when Mercury was making the trine to Neptune, when the Sun was in opposition to Mars, when Venus was quincunxing Aries, and when we had the new moon. So this is kind of like compiling on top of each other. And so the events from, say, just before the new moon starts to the 21st of October is like a house of cards. You hit one and eventually all of them sort of cascade falling. And that's what we want to do. We want to amplify the progressive work of readjusting our internal thinking patterns so that we can find deeper layers of authenticity within ourselves, right? And whatever that means to you. Okay. So nothing pretty much happens, to be honest, apart from the fact that the moon will cross over Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. So yes, that's a big deal. However, the moon will contain the balsamic phase relationship between Jupiter and Pluto in this chart. So here you see Pluto, here you see Jupiter. Jupiter's at 19 degrees. Pluto is sitting at 22 degrees. So the moon will cross over those aspects and will say, here's where, from the 22nd, here's where we're going to initiate a complete emotional and psychological purge, right? You need to confront that at the core level and really, really get to the root of what it is that you believe about yourself that may be negative, or maybe in a fantasy type state where it needs more grounding, or where you can become more focused. Whatever your trip is, whatever your narrative is, this energy is supporting you to become razor sharp, crystal clear on what that is about. Does that make sense? Okay. So moon crosses all of that stuff, trines Venus in Virgo. We have a nice little party in Virgo. We're healing ourselves. Amazing. And then the sun enters Scorpio and is about to then make a conjunction to Mercury, right? So again, as the moon crosses all of the stuff there in Capricorn, Sun Mercury conjuncts, and we have an experience of combusting all of those thinking patterns, burning it up in flames as the phoenix dissolves into ashes, as it were, engulfs itself with flames and then goes into the ashes. That's what we're experiencing on the 23rd of October, okay? So this crossover happens, the moon moves into Aquarius, it squares Uranus, we have a detaching and letting go moment. It feels like freedom in that way. And then the moon will enter Pisces, the sun and Mercury will cross over, and we'll experience the 26th of October. Hooray for my birthday. And that conjunction I find kind of interesting because my Mercury is at 29 degrees Libra and my sun sits at 2 degrees Scorpio. So there's a cool little trine happening between the moon, Mercury, and sun. And there's a message here. And the message is transmutation, right? The phoenix rises from the ashes and transmutes itself into something more alive. Yeah, this is when we're coming alive, right? Now, there's two ways this can experience. We can experience the moon crossing over into Pisces, trining that stuff in Scorpio, and then the moon moving across Neptune as a complete loss of meaning. It's like, what's the point of this? There's no purpose in this experience. I feel like there's an existential worldly threat, and I'm going to run away and hide in a cave. Or there is a deep metamorphosis around the psychological and emotional state of your thinking. You've gone through all of these transformational phases, and you come out the other side with profound insight and deeper meaning of your existence, right? So Mercury is now about to enter Libra. 29 degrees, Mercury enters Libra, the sun making an inconjunct to Chiron, and we have Venus, we have Venus there sitting at 0 degrees of Libra, okay? So 0 degrees of Libra, Venus enters it, Mercury enters it. Both of them are at the end degrees of each of the signs, so that can tell you a lot, especially considering that the last time that the moon was in Aries was when we had a full moon. So there's a very significant shift in direction. Now Mercury's in Libra, sun's in Scorpio, whereas before Mercury was in Scorpio and the sun was in Libra, right? So this is a shift in orientation. This is now, okay, cool, you've got all this meaning, you've gone through your metamorphosis process, you've transformed your thinking, and now it's time to socially integrate this into your life. You're going to start shifting your sense of identity. And that's going to be a rebalancing act, because as you've destabilized your thinking patterns and created space for you to explore something new and fill it with something that's actually authentically you, or what you're interested in, or what it lights you up, then this energy now promotes that. So as we go from the 28th of October all the way to the 3rd of November, we will just have compounding insights for the fact that when Mercury actually goes direct, as you can see, it's stationary there at the moment. It's squaring Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter. The moon crosses over Uranus, it crosses over Mars, and it will then conjunct the North Node. So when Mercury goes direct, the moon conjuncts the North Node. You can't even script this stuff. It's just incredibly profound how consistent it always is. I mean, the North Node ruler is Mercury. So the moon literally conjuncts the North Node as Mercury goes direct, right? And it happens while the moon goes over all of these very subjective planets and subjective signs, Aries, Taurus. So we realign with direction, moon in Aries. We realign with values that are deeply real and authentic for us, moon in Taurus. And then we move into the Gemini phase, in which we actually then align with the language. And that's the Mercury retrograde pattern, aligning with the right language that supports your individuation process. Sun in opposition to natal Uranus, right? Or transiting Uranus, right? There is a complete individuation of the self, and we become less intellectually and emotionally codependent towards old structures. We're beginning to consistently extract patterns of thinking that disassociate and disempower us, and we start taking charge of our lives. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to the PowerPoint presentation again, and I would like to talk about this. So where is the PowerPoint presentation? So here's something that I want to do just for a more abstract perspective. If you're looking at this over here, you see Jupiter sitting there, and I say the inner landscape, self-talk. You've got Saturn, culture, religion, and value, and then you've got openness, child, and constellate, the self. So this imagery over here is the right brain interpretation of what I've been talking about. So when we change our language with this Mercury retrograde, what we're doing is we're going into the deep landscape of our self-talk, Jupiter, right? The way that we create a philosophical truth is represented by this whiteness over here, and the Jupiter is that. It's like our philosophy, our worldview. And then Saturn is the boundary that we use to define it so that we know it actually exists. And then in the middle is our self. This is the authentic expression of who we are, right? Now, what you're shifting from is a belief system and a Saturn and a child that is, the child is dwarfed by the Saturn cultural religious value systems that you would have been raised with and experienced, and what narratives you think you run. And the Jupiter is those philosophies and communications that you have with yourself that gets reinforced by Saturn that dwarfs the inner child. So we're shifting from, well, let's actually amplify the inner child's experience and recreate a philosophical constellated self that is for you, that gives you meaning, and then you define your own culture as an independent. You define your own religion as an independent, and you value that as yourself. So here's what I value, here's what my religion is, and here's what my culture is. We're literally individuating from a collective we into creating your own independent sense of self that interrelates with the world. Okay? So I hope that kind of makes a sense for you guys there. And then lastly, the quote that I want to talk about is James Hillman. And I like this as a note to leave you with when you go through this Mercury retrograde. And that is, don't have answers, or I don't have answers, I have questions. And the inspiration here is, if you see your life, if you see life as a canvas, and that your awareness is a state of consistent curiosity, ask life what it is that you've come to answer. So it's the same kind of Neo and the Oracle have this conversation in the Matrix 2, and we've already been born, so the nature of desire is already initiated into this life, and now we're coming to figure out why. So why and what is the meaning of your life? And it's an investigation into the experience of that. So I don't have the answers. I don't know why I'm here. I don't have the answers either. But I have questions to investigate Mercury and Scorpio that leads me to deeper realms of understanding about the nature of my existence. What is my karma? What is my relationship to my culture like? You know, what types of relationships do I attract into my life? Why do I attract them into my life? What are they trying to tell me? What is life trying to tell me? And when I open up and see it from the perspective of what questions I have for it, life gives me answers. And if we're tuned in and tapped into that place, we have this entire cosmic library of information just waiting to be digested. And so in a sense, this is the awakening of the true self. So I hope that you guys find a lot of value in what I've shared with you today. I hope that this inspires you to move forward with this Mercury retrograde with something that's deeply guidance orientated. And I just want to say a couple of things. If you really find value in this, write in the comments. I'd really like to hear how you interpret this experience and what you think your questions are. B, don't forget Astrology School, the Patreon, if you would like to participate in that. And if you want to work with us one-on-one, okay? All right, guys. Have an amazingly rocking day. Take care. Bye-bye.